We often hear about Americans wanting to move to Canada for a better political climate or perhaps for better health care or other social safety nets. But apparently there's no shortage of Canadians moving south, and the reasons for doing so may surprise you. Joining us today to fill us in on all of this is Dr. Neil Seeman. He is a senior fellow and associate professor at the University of Toronto's Institute for Health Policy and co-author of the study Beyond the Borders: Unravelling Reasons for Canadians Relocating to the United States. Welcome to Bridge City News, Dr. Seeman. Great to have you today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jeanette. It's a great pleasure to dial in from Toronto. Thank you.
So this is a fascinating study. First of all, how many Canadians are we seeing emigrate to the U.S.?
Well, it's a good question. It's a bit of a black hole from my perspective. Hundreds of thousands. The question is, okay, we have Stats Can data, we have OECD data. I don't know the current number. We need some currency on that. Goodness, in California, there's, last I looked at it, there were about 500,000 Canadians having relocated to the United States. And then it depends on what you mean by emigrated. But we didn't examine that specific statistic. We did cite a number of historical data points, estimates on it.
Right. So we're not looking at snowbirds, definitely, like per se. It's people that have actually moved there.
That's true. That we call them relocators, people who've been there for a longish time, sort of 2 years. And what we studied are the observations of people who know them in their state. So we wanted to examine not the biased responses of just a small sample of people we could access who are Canadians living in the United States or snowbirds, for example. We wanted to get to the people who could objectively observe and know the people who've relocated to their state and engaged with them, know them well, and respond about, okay, why have these Canadians moved to their local state in the last 2 years?
All right. So why have they? So I'm guessing the top reason for moving to the U.S. maybe wouldn't surprise most of us, that being maybe like warmer weather, perhaps job opportunities.
Yeah, warmer weather may well be there, but job opportunity dominates. It has for some time. I don't think that's a big surprise. I think the counterintuitive finding here is that while job opportunities remains number one at about 28+%, surprisingly a close second is healthcare, when you combine healthcare access and healthcare quality. So it's an interesting driver, right? And there are other reasons people leave, whether it's family, low taxation, you name it. But that healthcare driver, again, these are observed drivers. We don't know all the granular reasons why people leave to the United States, but this is a blind spot in our administrative statistics.
The healthcare one is definitely a big surprise because we would think it would be the other way, that Americans want to come here for the healthcare. But it looks like it's almost as equally important as moving for job opportunities. So what is it about the American healthcare system that Canadians find attractive?
Yeah, it's less about it's less about the pull than it is the push. The general perspective is, look, we're spending a lot of money on social services, that having been the dominant narrative in terms of what anchors Canadians here. And there's no doubt that it does for many, many Canadians of all ages. However, the theory is that Canadians are frustrated with the return on investment of their tax dollars and what they exact in terms of healthcare access and healthcare quality combined. Now, when we look at whether they're satisfied with that primary driver of why they left a couple of years later, it varies tremendously by state, right? So we find in California, okay, that was the motivator. One of the big motivators was healthcare, and they are quite happy 2 years later. And then when we look at a state like Colorado, for example, we don't see that same phenomenon. So it varies considerably by state. And that's an important finding, is we really need to dig deeper into jurisdictional comparisons.
Okay, so does each state kind of operate their own healthcare system? It's not
Well,
necessarily a federal
yeah, it varies
thing.
considerably by state, and of course, in America, we have your healthcare carries with you with your employer, right?
Right.
So that is the dominant distinction. There's other tax distinctions and access distinctions depending on your age and your socioeconomic status. So it's variegated, and in Canada, it is too, as we know. And I mean, a big implication of this study from an academic perspective is that we need to study this more. We can't hide behind national level statistics. We need to dig into both the state level and the provincial level to really both baseline, which we did with this study, and then dig deeper in terms of why people are leaving. Like imagine if you had, a big company, a huge company, and every year 10% of your workforce was going, and you don't know why they're leaving, right? So it really affects recruitment and retention. And we've learned through this study, interestingly, that about 38% of these Canadians who've departed, they are open to returning. And that's a big finding, right? So they're open to returning on the right terms. So what can Canada do? What can each province do to entice them back?
Okay, so that still means that more than half of them, was it 62%, are not willing to return?
Yeah, well, they're certainly reticent. Yeah. How sort of hard, fast are they in that resistance to be determined? We'd have to dig into that further. But it is interesting, right? But that being said, right, if they've left, and the primary narrative historically was we keep Canadians here because of our social safety net. That then begs the question, what can we do to get them back, right? If they're primarily leaving because of the dominant narrative around the quality of our healthcare system, then we've got to do something more, quite considerably, to lure them back. And so when you look at the circle of reasons why Canadians are leaving, it presents an important policy paradox, right? Because so that's the narrative that we have to contend with as Canadians.
Yeah, it's interesting because many Canadians feel like the American system is so expensive. So it sounds like these Canadians who have left, they like the quicker access and also the better quality of healthcare. But how much concern was there for the cost of their healthcare system?
Well, again, we only know that based on proxy data. So we only know based on how happy they are with their dominant reason or trigger for leaving 2 years later. And, some people say absolutely they're very dissatisfied, and some say they're extremely happy. So it does vary. I suspect, and in a future study we'll have to dig deeper into this, I suspect it's highly correlated with discretionary income and the security associated with your job. But again, to be determined.
Who exactly is moving to the U.S.? What are the demographics? What kinds of people? What are the ages that we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's all over. I mean, we found quite a diversity spread. I mean, this was really not a study that, when you look at it nationally, found a great pointed distinction. We found, I don't know the exact numbers. They're in the study in terms of the breakdown between 18 to 34, and the other levels. And we have the unweighted data in there as well as the weighted data. It's a beautifully representative sample of that group. So it's a diverse group. It's not clinging to this narrative that it's all about retirees moving to warmer climates.
Yeah. Have you looked into if any of these folks are dual citizens? Because obviously that would make it more easy for them to make the jump.
Thank you, Jeanette. I mean, that merits bearing into in a future study. I mean, I should give you some context. I mean, this was a big surprise to us, this healthcare finding, and it is an administrative blind spot, right? Because we don't release, there's no StatsCan data on the reasons for people leaving. And so this is a surprise. And so as a result of that, we need to dig deeper into all of these issues: dual citizenship, the nature of the job, whether they're on an H-1B visa, for example, access with a pathway to a green card, for example. So there's a lot of potential reasons why some people would be happier than others.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I personally am a dual citizen, was born in the U.S., so I've lived on both sides of the border basically my whole life. So it's easier for somebody in that situation who's got the two passports. But if you don't, how difficult is it to emigrate to the United States from Canada?
Well, as having myself worked on both sides of the border, it's a lot more difficult than often young people think, right? This
Right.
is a different country. It's not about the current administration, no doubt, and its crackdown on H-1B visas, and the significance of that for young, recent graduates and STEM-related programs. No doubt that has an impact, but it is difficult. You have to secure a job, and you have to outclass your competitive suite in America and have justified that. And now, of course, the company has to invest in sponsoring you. So it's not we often forget that we are distinct countries, and we don't have freedom of labor between the two countries. I think the key issue is understanding why people are leaving and what we can do in Canada should we be true to the political narrative, which is, hey, we not only want to invest in young Canadians and giving them diplomas, but we want to not have 70% of those folks who move to the United States bring their diplomas with them, because that's just a wasteful investment of capital.
Yeah. Do we know where the Canadians are moving from? Do we know if there's more of a tendency for Western Canadians or Central Canadians to move south of the border, or is it kind of all over the
Yeah,
map?
thank you. Not yet. I want to really dig into that further again. I mean, right now, we deliberately set this as a representative study because we wanted national level just pool of people, and we were looking at that the diversity of observers and respondents in the United States. But yes, again, I know this sounds like a researcher, but we do need to dig into that further.
Right. So with that said, what changes, and you probably need to dig into this too, but what changes does Canada need to make in order to make it more likely for Canadians to stay home?
Well, thank you. I mean, first, I mean, we need to be transparent with the data. We need to measure better. We need to benchmark better, province to province, again, state to state. In terms of retention, I think we really need to treat it just like we do any big company. We need to have exit interviews. We need to collect that data and those
Ah,
narratives. Because people are leaving, as we say, for a diversity of reasons. If they are leaving for healthcare reasons, maybe there's a myth around access to healthcare in America, because as we know, in certain jurisdictions like Colorado, they actually regret their decision. In other regions, they don't. So I do believe from a policy perspective, yes, there's people have talked about tax reduction policy. I think we have to, and this is why we need to really look at province by province distinctions. Look, there's been changes in Alberta. That's an interesting benchmark in terms of policy changes. Does that then have an implication on the percentage of Albertans emigrating and leaving to America, and vice versa? Again, and we need to do that in other provinces too. So it's a measurement problem first, I would say, and a benchmarking and baseline problem, and then we dig in, and then we pilot and experiment.
exactly. Thank you so much for sharing this with
Thank
us
you.
today, Neil. It was
Yeah,
really
thank you, Jeanette.
interesting and eye-opening.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Neil Seeman is a senior fellow and associate professor at the University of Toronto's Institute for Health Policy and co-author of the study Beyond the Borders, Unravelling Reasons for Canadians Relocating to the United States. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.